This is not a mistake. This is not a recording. We are streaming live. As it has been known and has been made official, Channing Tatum is Gambit. He was the obvious choice. He was the choice they always wanted. I want to say, was it 4 years ago? They approached about making a Gambit movie very seriously. When they got Bryan Singer back in place, Bryan Singer did not want to do an individual movie with Gambit. But what they also wanted to do was make sure that they didn't screw up the timeline of the X-Men. So by bringing in Gambit, what this does is opens up a whole different avenue as far as could they bring him into the new X-Men movie, which would take place in the 90s. And remember us in the 90s watching the X-Men cartoon, it would kind of go right in place if they were to squeeze Channing Tatum in the next X-Men movie. So by him having his standalone film, he could be the new face of the X-Men that takes place in the 90s, which the new generation is kind of missing now without Wolverine kind of being in these new X-Men movies. You kind of need somebody to be the face and standout person. I think he can fit in very well. But a standout Gambit movie, a lot of people were like, I want to see it, but I kind of don't. But I am. I think this would be really done. It's done probably, very well. I think Doug Liman was on point to be the director at first, and I think he's out of it now, and they got a new director. The cast, they're still going through the main cast to see who's going to be. They're holding the script real tight to the chest. And now it's very serious now that he's going to actually be Gambit. Now at least that we have that officially done, we can move forward. And to go through that process, well, you got to look at Gambit. You got to say, wow, okay, this is Gambit. What to expect here. What is he going to do? What is it really going to be about? What is really the true origin of Gambit? How did he link up with the X-Men? How would this tie into the fold? Well, you got to remember, Channing Tatum just did a Southern accent film called Lucky Logan, where he plays a guy from like Louisiana down in the bayou. So if he could pull that off, and his accent wasn't really that good in that film, but no one complained about it. So if you watch Lucky Logan and hear the way he was talking in his Louisiana accent down there when they were going through NASCAR and all that stuff, when he was down there doing his Southern drawl, and no one complained about it. When I saw it, I was just like, wow. He kind of sounds like Channing Tatum. Doesn't really sound, his Southern drawl is not really there. But his acting was. This film is going to come down to the script because he has the look. Remember they had Taylor Kitsch do it before, and Taylor Kitsch just didn't work out in that Wolverine movie, and that failed a lot of people, and people were very disappointed in the film. Couldn't believe they took the avenue they did to make the film. So on that note, I understood why they were very close to the chest with dealing with Gambit. This can revolve, more in line with the storyline of the X-Men, especially going into the 90s. Remember, they did X-Men, they did the 60s, they did the 70s. The last one they did was Apocalypse was done in the 80s. Now they're going to the 90s. The next X-Men film will be in the 90s. Well, yeah, he's with the Skittles crew. Bryan Singer is with the Skittles crew all the way. Um, a lot of people are in this industry. But he's not going to be directing this film. He's out. He'll be directing only X-Men movies only if they do it. Well, his experience with DC didn't go too well, and we'll get into that later when we'll do the Superman rundown. Well, the thing is Fox had, well, that was Sony that owned Spider-Man. So they had to work out a deal with Spider-Man, and Fox would have to work out a deal with Marvel for X-Men. But since X-Men has been making money, they really hadn't had a need to want to work with Marvel. Singer messed up X-Men? No, I think he kind of got it back on track. Okay, there it is. After the third X-Men film, it kind of went left. What this is a still shot of Channing Tatum as his portrait for Gambit. The script, if it's done, they're keeping it really close to the chest. But obviously it's going to be an origin piece of Gambit and how he came to be from a magician to everything that came in. Well, X-Men Apocalypse got screwed up because it looked like from a budget standpoint, they couldn't do what they wanted to do. You gotta understand, this is Fox. Had this been Marvel, Apocalypse would have been done a lot better. All the X-Men films, when they were shot, what has been spotty all the time is the CGI work. They're mostly character-oriented, get whatever you can. The action scenes haven't been that super spectacular. The third film, which had spent a lot of money on big scenes and big, with all of these things, the writing was so terrible. And the way they made, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch! It just was so ridiculous that they just ruined the whole Phoenix saga. And when Bryan Singer came back, and that's why they brought Singer back, because they knew they dropped the ball. So bringing Bryan Singer back opened up the avenues for them to go in this direction. So what they were building was rebuilding the X-Men from the beginning, showing X-Men origins, X-Men, going through the whole beginning when they got started and building all the way up. And I think that was the best way to go. Well, see, I won't be around Bryan Singer. X2, Bryan Singer started off and doing the first two X-Men, and those were classics. Then he came back and did X-Men Origins. Then he did Days of Future Past, which was both of those were excellent. So the only bad X-Men movie he's ever done was X-Men Apocalypse. That's the only bad one that Bryan Singer has done. And it wasn't completely awful. It was just the way that Fox didn't want to really shell out the money to make it epic. So they had to do and work around their budget. They were over budget on a lot of scenes, and I didn't even know how because they really didn't use too much. I have Google, I got Apple Music, so I had it as soon as it dropped. I got everything as soon as it dropped. I have access to every song, unless it's exclusively on Tidal or something. I have access to every song and every album as soon as it drops. You pay $10 a month, and for $10 a month, you have access to all songs. It's the best deal going. I don't know why anybody in the world don't have it. Oh, yeah, that's right. He didn't do X-Men Origins. I think that was Matthew Vaughn, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry about that. Matthew Vaughn left so that he can go do the Kingsman movie. And once he left to do the Kingsman movie, Days of Future Past was when Bryan Singer came back. Sorry about that. But you get the point. The Golden Eagle. I collect CDs too, but now I know that they're a dying breed and they just take up space. But I do like to read. See, back then we used to read the back of them and know who produced the song, who did the records and all that stuff. You know who had a great booklet and the album wasn't that bad? Trey Songz last album. His CD and the booklet, it came with a real booklet and everything, which they call the hard copy now. Like, yeah, I got to pick up the hard copy. Well, when we say X-Men Origins, that's what we really mean is First Class. Well, when I go over there to my page, Filthy Frank don't be filthy broke when it comes to the NBA season. X-Men Origins is basically X-Men First Class. That's just it. They just changed it because someone else owned the title. Comic book wise, they couldn't use X-Men Origins and just said X-Men First Class. So we all know what X-Men Origins really is. If I had to rate the X-Men movies, I'll do that at another time. But yeah, I'll definitely do that. We'll rank all the X-Men from best to worst. Oh, you mean the Wolverine movie? I don't know who directed that, but whoever directed that should be fired. The X-Men Wolverine movie, the one they call Origins, and that one, oh God. That is by far the worst. If I got to throw that in the mix of the X-Men movies, compared with all the rest of them, that is by far the worst. Well, here's the thing. Channing Tatum was barely in X-Men. I mean, in the Kingsman Golden Circle. He was put on ice because he had to go. I think he was in between projects. He was doing two projects at one time. So he only had a couple days to really film on that movie. Yeah, it's a lot that's going on. Let me go ahead and start taking care of some things I need to get done here around the house. And we'll pick it up later. But yes, it's finally done. Yes, it is finally done. Channing Tatum will be Gambit. No, I was supposed to pick up my laundry. That's about it. But I do got to pick it up. That's something I got to do. I was supposed to do that at around 3 o'clock, but I didn't do it. So I'll just pick it up tomorrow.